Hello, everyone, and welcome to Polaron's Facebook live stream. As always, we are joined by our director, Eva Hussein, and our guest for this week is Patricia Polka. Patricia is a Polish
Hello.
language teacher and the founder of gopolish.co.uk. She'll be giving you tips on where to begin your journey of learning Polish as a beginner. If you would like to learn more about Poland and the Polish language, head to our YouTube channel for previous live streams and join us here weekly on Facebook for more videos and information. Over to you, Eva.
Thank you so much, Sarah. And let me tell you how pleased I am to have Patrycja over. Oh, my cat is photobombing the. Go away, cat. Cat in Polish is kot, Patrycja, right?
Yeah, that's correct.
Yeah, kot, go away. Well, I'm very pleased to have Patrycja on speaking to us about the Polish language today. Because Patrycja, I met you, I want to say 2 years ago in 2019 in a cafe in London. About
Yes.
yeah, and we wouldn't have ever dreamed of actually working together to this extent. Tell us what do you do? Well, first of all, tell us a bit more about Go Polish, and how do we work together? Explain to people, please, about what happens behind the scenes.
Yeah, so let's start with Go Polish. Go Polish, it's my little baby, my company. I have started a few years ago. So I started working as a independent teacher, and I managed to start my own little language school company called Go Polish. We offer Polish lessons, both one-on-one lessons and group courses. And yeah, that's true. It was 2 years ago when we met for the first time, and actually our first meeting was during the business conference in the Polish embassy
Right.
in
Yes.
London. Yeah, I remember. I was so surprised because I've heard about you from another person who was there, and she told me about your work and so on. So I decided to approach you. And I remember I introduced myself, and I said I'm a director founder of Go Polish, and he said, "Oh, I know you because you've seen my profile on Facebook," which was very, very. I was shocked. I didn't think that my profile or the platform was so popular, and that was the time when we started to work together. Then we had the meeting, and we decided how to do it, what we will do, and now Go Polish do lessons for Polaron's clients. We work with your amazing clients who are trying to get Polish citizenship, and that's why they decided to learn Polish, and they're really amazing. They are so dedicated and motivated to both learn the language and learn about Polish culture and traditions as well.
Yeah, it's really interesting what you said, because I think we do live in a very strange world. So essentially, for those of you that are watching us, Patrycja specialized in teaching Polish as a second language, which is a very different skill than just being able to teach Polish to natives, because it is a language that linguistically is quite far, from English, and people get intimidated by it, and they think, "Oh, I'm never going to be able to learn it. It's such a, you hear these things that Polish is the most difficult language in the world or whatever." Most of it isn't true, I think personally. But people come to Patrycja, and there are other teachers like Kasia, and you've got Sylvia, I think, and Babtek,
Yeah, that's correct.
to overcome that barrier, which is a lot of the time what's in your heart and what's in your mind. So people that work with you, Patrycja, first of all, they're people of Polish heritage that are trying to reconnect with maybe a gap of about 100 years sometimes, where when their ancestors immigrated, language was the first thing that went. So they may have some Polish, but not a lot. It may be that sort of kitchen variety. So how do you overcome that intimidation or that confidence barrier that some people have?
So the fear of speaking, it's very natural, especially for adults, because we don't like to sound silly. We don't like to make mistakes. It's very difficult for us. So when I do my lessons, when I work with my students, the most important thing for me is to make them feel comfortable. Because if you feel comfortable with the teacher, if you feel comfortable with the person you speak to, that's the most important. And a lot of students who have come who have come to me for those years, they usually feel comfortable with listening and reading. Speaking is the most difficult for them because they are afraid of making a mistake. So the most important thing, find a person you feel comfortable with speaking. Usually, surprisingly, usually it's not a person you're related to, not your partner, not a family member, because like speaking with them, it's quite difficult. So a good idea is to find a good teacher or a language partner or anyone you feel comfortable to speak to. If you look for a language partner, it could be either a native speaker or another person who learns Polish as well, because then they will understand your struggle. And although you are not both, you both are not natives, I think it might be even easier to speak to each other because you learn the language from a position of a not native speaker. The best example, if you speak to a native speaker, your partner, your family member, and you ask them, what case should I use here? How should I structure the sentence? They will tell you, but they won't be able to tell you why, which is quite confusing. Yeah, they will say, that's the way we say it. If you work with another Polish learner, they might be able to help you. The same when it comes to teachers. If you have a good teacher who was who has been trained to teach Polish as a foreign language, they will be able to answer your questions from this position, which also will give you confidence speaking, because then it's like, okay, this language actually makes sense. There is a way to learning it. Because if you use language apps or you speak to native speakers, like you use so many forms, those words are so different. How to learn all of it? With a good language partner or a teacher, it's possible.
So, Patrycja, when you're talking about good teachers, what are some of the virtues of a teacher? And we get a lot of feedback because we speak to our clients once every 2 weeks, and we get a lot of feedback about you, very, very positive. And one of the things they say is that Patrycja is just lovely, and she's so patient, and she's so calm. And so it's a bit like therapy. Is it language therapy that you offer, or is it language lessons that you offer?
True, it's sort of like that. But first of all, thank you for all those kind words. So I think the most important here is to have a teacher who is patient with you and a teacher who understands your struggle. So for me, because I've been teaching for many years, and I remember when I started, and so many things were just obvious for me, so I wouldn't tell about them to my students. And later, like understanding better English or other languages, and knowing how people structure sentences or say something in other languages helped me focus on things they need to understand, need to know to be able to speak. I've been working mostly with English speakers, but also Italian speakers, French speakers, Slavic speakers like Russians, with Swedish speakers and so on. So I have variety of languages,
Right.
and um, I often ask them, how would you say it in your language, how your language works? Once they explain me a little bit, it's easier for me to understand the mistakes they make or what we need to focus on. There's a different way of working with an English speaker or a Russian speaker.
Because
So it's exactly, so it's important to find a teacher who understands your struggles, who understands what what is important to you to know to be able to speak.
And of course, Patrycja, people have different learning styles. The way that they acquire and store information is different. And I think also the base that you start off, so you mentioned Slavic languages such as Russian, it would be easier, in some ways at least, for a Russian speaker to learn Polish because they're linguistically close. Whereas for an English speaker, I'm sure that you forever get why do words change? Like why did the ending of the words change? Like, why do I have to reinvent the wheel every time? So I think it's about normalizing, because language is a system essentially. So once you understand the rules, then you can understand how to use them, right? But I think
Yeah.
frustration for people with Polish heritage is that they've seen their grandparents or friends speak Polish as if it was just the easiest thing ever, and then they get immersed in the language and they discover that that system is really quite complicated, right? So how do you explain the grammar? Because for some people, they really want to know how things work. For other people, it's just, I just want to speak. Like, you know, I don't care how it happens. Let me speak. So how do you reconcile that? And how do you explain this really complex ancient grammar that the Polish language has?
So unfortunately, it's not really possible to speak without knowing the grammar. It is complicated, but what I always say to my students, step by step, not all at once. Just focus on one thing and then go to another. I usually advise my students to focus on verbs and verbs conjugations, because if you are able to say I do something, you, and you do something, he does something, it's people will understand what you are saying, even if the part that follows, so you don't use the right case, you don't use the right form of adjective, people will understand this part. So focusing on the verb, that's something what I always say to my students at the beginning. If you want to speak, focus on this, and then slowly, step by step, going through the cases. And again, someone who is able to explain you how it works, finding good resources to do exercises to practice it. That's very important. And actually, I would say that English speakers are the best students, because when it comes to Russians, like you said, they those languages are so close to each other that when we have a lesson, they understand what I'm saying, so they assume they don't need to make any notes because it's so obvious. When English speakers, because it's so difficult for them, it's so new, so exotic, they make a lot of notes and they work really hard, which is very, very impressive.
You mentioned hard work there, and I'm one of the reasons I speak of you so highly, and the teachers at Go Polish is because I see the results. So just now, 2 weeks ago, I spoke to a client in Polish, like the whole 60 minutes that we had, and my jaw dropped. I was so impressed because this particular person, and if you're listening to us, hello, you'll know who you are, was so intimidated. She was like, you know, I speak a number of different languages. I will never learn Polish. This is impossible. This is and then we were able, you know, 3 or maybe 4 months on of the lessons, we were able to have a proper conversation about, you know, her family, basic stuff. So we weren't talking about, you know, saving the world and Wales or whatever. But I was just so complimentary, and it's down to of course, her hard work, but also your ability to sort of calm people down and slow people down, and let people learn at their own pace, because everyone's a little bit different, right, when it comes to language learning.
That's true. So if I work with a student, if we have one-on-one lessons, I can see how they learn, what sort of exercises they enjoy, what they do in their personal lives. I can adjust the exercises or examples. So yeah, I think it's very important to find a teacher who's able to do it. But yeah, I think a teacher, it's only to guide students what to do or explain, like especially how the grammar works, why we have to say this sentence this way, but this one the other way. But students work, what they do after the lesson, how they practice daily. That's the most important. The person you are talking about, yeah, she's like amazing. She works a lot. She has completed. Actually, she has completed one beginner's course. She's been doing the second one. She joins group lessons. She has done some one-on-one lessons. So she basically speak Polish or listen to Polish at least twice a week. which is very important. And I'm sure she works in the meantime as well, learning vocabulary, especially.
Yeah, and that's commitment. So I'm going to share with you and others, and I'm not a language teacher, and I don't even pretend that I can teach people. But what I do with my clients is a few things that might be actually helpful for other people to know. One of the things we do is we exchange emails in Polish. So once they get to a level where they can understand a little bit, I encourage them to write to me in Polish, and I use words that are common to both languages, whether it's English and Polish. I sort of, there's words like, I don't know, interesujący, konferencja, restauracja. So things that, if they read it, I want them to get the gist of it, because I think that confidence that people build comes from actually not feeling so intimidated. So that's one of the things I do. The other thing I do is try and speak to them. And again, you've mentioned that, but I'm not worried about conjugation. All I'm worried about is that they can get it out and explain. And we also do a lot of listening exercises, because one of the things that people say about Polish is that we speak so super fast, and you just can't sort of catch up. And by the time you've missed one word, you've not understood anything. What are some of the other tips for people that are watching us, and there are quite a few, about learning language? For example, could you tell us, do apps work? There's so many on the market. There's Duolingo, there's Babel, there's whatever's. What are some of the things that people, other than working with the teacher, which we would encourage everyone to do, even if it's just a few lessons, what are some of the other things people can do to improve their Polish language skills?
Yeah, so now you can find many different apps for learning Polish or other languages. Those I would recommend are definitely Duolingo or Memrise, Babbel, and Rosetta Stone. Those apps are good for learning pronunciation and vocabulary, because they don't really show much grammar. So that's why I always recommend my students to use them together with the lesson. So if you want to get used to practicing Polish every day, just use an app, especially an app like Duolingo. They send like thousands of notifications and reminders and so on, so they push you to do it every day. Plus you have those strikes, yeah, if you do it like for 1 to 3 days, which also motivates you, because if you've done it for 10 days, you don't want to lose those 10 stars or whatever they have there. You automatically want to carry on. So it's very good to get routine learning the language if you use those apps. Also, it gave you already some vocabulary and phrases, so you don't have to prepare it yourself. But for students who don't want to use those apps because they find vocabulary not really useful, or sentences not really what they would like them to be, another really good app, it's Quizlet.
Okay.
Quizlet is for you to create your own flashcards. So you can prepare your own flashcards, and it has some base of some phrases there, like Polish phrases or other languages as well. So when you type a phrase, sometimes you can see suggestion, and if you click on it, you can have even audio. So you can have a whole phrase like gram na pianinie. I play piano, and you can listen to it and write it down and listen to it. And after, you have different exercises, so you can just view the flashcards, or you can listen to the word and write it down, or the other way around, so you have it written down and you need to say it, and so on. So it's almost the same type of exercises as you have in Duolingo. The difference is that you can create it yourself, so you can focus on something that's actually useful for you. There are also many websites where you can go and find some podcasts or exercises. When it comes to podcasts, especially for beginners, I would recommend Polski Daily. That's a website created by my friend Paulina Lipiec, and her podcasts are really good, because she has noticed that there are not many podcasts or any recordings for beginners. So she has podcasts, she has listening exercises for people who only started learning the language, which is very, very important. Usually we find podcasts for more advanced students, and once you start to listen to it being a beginner, it might be a little bit overwhelming. So it's good to start with those. And something you have mentioned, that we speak very fast, we speak in a different way, and so on. So another like exercises or podcasts she does, and which are very, very good, are it has a name. It's called Real Talks with Poles. And
Okay.
she invites her friends or people she knows, and she records like 5 minutes, I think, podcast speaking to different people, which is perfect for all students, not only beginners, because they can listen to different people
Small
speaking
chunks.
Polish. Yeah, and the topics are very useful and very basic, like, for example, going to a hairdresser, or favorite food, or your job. What do you do in your free time? Tell me something about your family. What do you like about your city? So this sort of. And because she speaks to real Polish people who are not teachers, who just talk to her, it's amazing because they use different vocabulary, they speak faster or slower, they have different pronunciation, and it's really good for students, like I said, all levels, just to get used to it. Maybe not like very beginners, but if you know a little bit of Polish, that's a good exercise.
Yeah, that's great because it gives you this immersion that that you need to really sort of absorb or embrace a language. On the other hand, it's not like hours of listening, so you won't get discouraged. I think 5 minutes are really good chunks. But I was just going to comment on how far we've moved in how we work or how we teach language. So once upon a time, you'd have a classroom full of people, and everybody would be sitting there handwriting the exercise. You'd be walking around, I guess, supporting everyone in a classroom. And nowadays it's more individual, though we do have group lessons. But one of the things I wanted to mention now is somebody else who's actually Australian that I'm working with. And she started attending lessons, like Polish lessons, like in a community center with other Polish people. And I think she got to the point where it was a little bit frustrating. So I think she's working with Bartek actually. And when I spoke to her last, she was, oh my God, it is such a big difference where actually people can, when a teacher explains, because I think the community center is, a Polish teacher that knows how to teach Polish to Polish people, which is very different. And she was just like, it's opened up so many doors in my head where I was wondering about certain things and how grammar works, and he's been able to explain it. So just in a short period of time, and we're talking 2 or 3 lessons, she's progressed miles ahead. Because also the other thing I think with individual lessons is that you work one-on-one with someone who comes with different set of experiences, vocab, all of that is individual. And I think that focused attention of half an hour or however long the lessons last really, really works for some people. For others, they want to be part of a group. And I think a combination of the two works best. Would you say?
Yes, it's true, but like you said, depends on a student. Some prefer to have one-on-one lessons because they focus on what they need, and also they like to be pushed. If you have a lesson one-on-one, you can't hide. It's not like, oh, someone else will say, I need to speak, I need to understand, I need to be focused for an hour or 45 minutes. Depends on how long the lesson is. So that's, some people likes it, that they have to be active all the time. Group lessons give you the community, the fact of being part of a group and exchanging some experiences, or when you don't speak, you can listen to someone else speaking, and it's also plus it's always fun to be a part of a group, and especially now having online lessons because of the COVID and the whole situation. I'm actually a huge fan of online lessons. I wasn't that sure about them before, but I like it now, and I think it's very beneficial for students as well, because when we do online lesson, we can always record them, which means that even if you missed a class, or if you want to go through it again, you just watch the video and you can make notes, or you can easily go back to what the teacher said. When you have normal classes, it's like you remember something, but after the lesson it's not that clear. So the fact that we can record it, the fact that we can go over it a few times, it's really useful. Also, it gives you opportunity to use different sort of exercises, games, and so on. So it's useful both for one-on-one and group lessons.
So it's more interactive. So I'm going to hand over to Hazara a question, but there's one that I wanted to ask you before I do. And that is, do you have any advice for anybody that's been burned learning a language? So what I mean by that is, often I speak to people that may have done, I don't know, French in high school, and they've really convinced themselves that they're really bad with language. I hear that all the time. How would you overcome that barrier that's really perpetuated even, some people just don't think they're good with languages. And I disagree. I think it's the confidence that maybe those people need to work on. What do you say to that, Patricia?
I would say I said to those people that they haven't found a good method to learn it.
Right.
Because it's usually that's the thing, yeah. Because some people say that they are bad with languages because they were forced to learn it in a certain way, like for example going through the grammar, and they are not that good with learning the grammar. They prefer to speak or listen or do something else. And I think once you find a good way, the way that suits you, and if you are motivated, you can do a lot.
Right.
I used to work with one student, and she was sure that she's not good with languages, but she was so motivated to learn Polish, and we were trying different ways, and we have found a way that works for her. She speaks Polish very well. It's not like a native speaker level, but
Right.
she was able to go to Poland, order a coffee. She was able to go to a restaurant and order in Polish, speak in Polish with her Polish friends. It wasn't like a perfect Polish, but the goal is to be able to communicate. And also, once you see it works, when you speak to a person and they understand what you say, it will give you extra motivation, extra courage to learn. So I don't think like the phrase that I'm bad with learning languages, it's actually true. It's just
we
a
should ban
matter
it.
of finding a way.
Yeah, I think we should ban it. And, we're talking about highly accomplished, professionals that somehow found language a difficult thing to learn. Hazara, we have 2 minutes for one question. It's been a very, very interesting session, Patrycja, really fascinating. And it's an area that a lot of people are interested in. So Hazara, I'll hand over to you for one question. And look, we will post the apps and podcasts that Patrycia's mentioned on our Facebook page, and you can of course reach out to her or me. But over to you, Hazara. Thank you.
Yes, hi. I have one question here. So what are the most important phrases to learn in Polish if you want to visit Poland one day? If you had to throw a couple out there.
The most important phrase.
How to order beer?
Exactly. I was going to say first to say hello. That's the important phrase. Yeah, how to order. Yeah, that's useful. Basically, how to order anything to eat, because as you probably know, Polish food is it's very tasty. So I would just recommend learning one word, or actually 3. So dzień dobry, hello. poproszę, which means which is equivalent of the English "can I have," and then just order whatever Polish food you like, which is very delicious. And yeah, so I would say those 3 words are the most important once you travel to Poland.
Excellent, excellent. And if there are others, then there's so many online and offline tools. There are books, there are podcasts. And we do encourage you to work with Patrycja, not because we love her to bits, but because she can really teach you Polish. And we've seen it. Like, I've seen progress that I was amazed at. So we do encourage Polish language learning because it's a great language, particularly if you have Polish heritage. It does bring you closer to your roots. It brings you closer to your identity. It's a connector. So that perfection that Patrycja spoke of, I don't speak perfect Polish, you know, like I've lived in Australia for 35 years and every now and then there's a word like, are you sure? This is, you know, like, there's no such thing in my mind as perfect Polish. But I think it's what you make of it. It's how you make that journey to reconnect. And Patrycja will be a perfect partner. So Patrycja, thank you for this morning. I know it's quite late in London now, so I will let you go. But just maybe just a few last words, and thank you so very much for being part of this today.
Thank you very much for having me, and thank you very much for all the kind words. I
Always.
really enjoy working with your clients. Like I said before, it's really amazing that they want to reconnect with their Polish heritage, that they want to learn the language. And I know it's not that easy for them, especially that sometimes they don't have anyone to speak to, which it makes it even harder. So it's really amazing how they try and they really make amazing progress.
And I think having a good teacher is always a good thing. So thank you again. Thank you, Hasara, for facilitating the session. Thank you, Patrycja, and everybody that's watched. Feel free to reach out anytime with any questions or comments. And thanks again.
Thank you very much.
Bye.